Hi guys! Today I'd like to read you a fun story called Fancy Nancy. Maybe you've seen some of Nancy's later exploits, or maybe you've seen TV shows or movies with her, but this was her original book and it's one of my favorites. Maybe you got all dressed up fancy recently too. Fancy Nancy. This is my room before I made it fancy. Pretty nice looking, right? Oh, much, much more fancy. I love being fancy. My favorite color is fuchsia. That's a fancy way of saying purple. I like to write my name with a pen that has a plume. That's a fancy way of saying a feather. And I can't wait to learn French because everything French is fancy sounding. Nobody in my family is fancy at all. They never even ask for sprinkles. Do you like sprinkles on your ice cream? There's a lot they don't understand. Lace trim socks do help me play soccer. Sandwiches definitely taste better when you stick in frilly toothpicks. A princess is supposed to keep her tiara on. What is a fancy girl to do? I asked my doll, Maribel. Her first name is really Maribel Lavinia Chandelier. Then I get an idea that is stupendous. That's a fancy word for great. Maybe I can teach my family how to be fancy. I make an ad and I stick it on the fridge. Learn to be fancy with lessons from Nancy. Start today. Fun, easy, and free. Soon there is a knock on my door. My family saw the ad. They want to get started straight away. The trouble is, my family doesn't own any fancy clothes. That's okay. I go find, what is that fancy word? Oh, yes, some accessories. My, ooh la la, my family is posh. That's a fancy word for fancy. My mom twirls in front of the mirror. Why don't we go somewhere fancy tonight? How about the King's Crown, Dad suggests. Wow, my parents are acting fancier already. May I escort you lovely ladies outside? The limousine is waiting. My dad is our chauffeur. That's a fancy word for a driver. When we arrive at the King's Crown, everybody looks up. They probably think we're movie stars. I am so proud of my whole family. They sit with their pinkies up and they call each other darling. For dessert, let's have parfaits, my mom says. That is French for ice cream sundaes. Amazing! My mother knows French. When our parfaits are ready, I curtsy and I say, merci. Oh no, I see a disaster coming. Do you? What do you think's gonna happen? I carry my trays like a fancy waiter. Uh-oh, Oops, I trip. I slip. Oh no. The tray does a double flip. Oh no. I don't feel so fancy anymore. I want to go home. After I get all cleaned up, I put on my dressing gown. That's a fancy word for a bathrobe. I feel much better. I'm ready for a parfait. I tell my parents, "Thank you for being fancy tonight." "I love you," says my dad. "I love you," says my mom. All I say back is, "I love you," because there isn't a fancy or a better way of saying that. The end. I hope you enjoyed this story about Fancy Nancy.